Hey there, everybody. My name is Shiva, and I wanted to talk y'all through my kind of map versus AB framework here. Map, multi-arm bandit versus AB. Um, so multi-arm bandit is effectively a mechanism to try many variations of things across a control version. It doesn't necessarily need a control version, but it effectively auto allocates traffic to whatever version of the test is winning at the most. Winning is predetermined by selecting a KPI before you launch the map, test, initiative, bandit, whatever you want to call it. So in effect, it allows for you to pick the winningest version of something at the cost of most of the time being, not being able to understand necessarily the why or necessarily dig really into learnings for experiments. An A-B test traditionally is, if there's two variations, it's 50-50. If there's three variations, 33-33, effectively splitting the traffic evenly. Multi-arm bandit does not split traffic evenly, and in fact, if it's splitting something evenly, then either there's a problem with your tool or it's basically no significant difference in the variations that you're testing across. What you'll end up seeing is it'll be split probably, if you have two versions, 50-50, and then you'll start to see one version start to really pull away. And it'll auto-allocate more and more traffic to the version of the multi-arm bandit that is winning by the pre-selected KPI at the most. So in terms of thinking about use cases at a high level, generally speaking, multi-arm bandits are very good for seasonality related things. So like if you're trying to run something for a campaign that maybe only has a week and a half runtime, something like that, something a little bit smaller. And if you need maybe 3 weeks to reach statistical significance on a test, you're not necessarily looking for learnings. You're just looking to identify which campaign, which landing page, which variation is winning the most compared to, the other version you have, which would probably be the control. So you're just looking for an algorithm to push more traffic into the winning variation for that duration of time. So seasonality tends to be, pretty impactful here. What other pretty big use cases? Many variations of something. So I'd say, it's not a hardened rule. I think there's a lot of it depends. But if I had to kind of set a line in the sand loosely somewhere, I'd say maybe 4 to 5 variations would be the time that you'd want a multi-arm bandit rather than A/B test. Assuming learning is not as important. If you're trying to learn from a 5 variation test, I'd recommend maybe splitting that up into multiple A/B tests. If you're just looking to win, then potentially multi-arm bandit would be better because it'll just auto allocate traffic into the winningest version of the test. So yeah, hopefully you can use this framework to kind of run through to say, you can multi-arm bandit if you have a tool capable of doing it. If you don't have a tool capable of doing it, obviously you're not going to be able to multi-arm bandit. But then, for example, make sure you have decent enough traffic volume to run an A/B test if that's your preferred mechanism. For me, that is my preferred mechanism because I tend to prefer learning over kind of winning. For me, it's just kind of a philosophical thing. The more I learn, the more I'll ultimately win rather than exclusively focusing in on winning. But ideally, you have good traffic volume. If you don't, potentially multi-arm bandit will be more preferential. If you're trying to learn, tends to be more preferential towards A/B testing. If you're trying to optimize for a single metric and speed is more important than learning, you want to tend to multi-arm bandit. This one I think could really be helpful, especially for things like around holiday seasons and limited runtime campaigns, like I mentioned before. Would love to, have y'all download this blueprint, keep it on your drive in case you ever want to reference it. What I'll also say too is I think this is an ever-evolving blueprint because multi-armed bandit functionality and technology I think will continue to evolve and grow. So this is not set in stone. If any of y'all have any feedback, positive or negative, additional questions that you think could be added to this framework to make it a little bit more comprehensive, I'm more than open to hearing that feedback, and we'll do our best to see how we can incorporate the feedback into the framework. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, additional things you want to tweak, change, etc. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this.